The safety and well-being of children is our top concern, and by
Plainly
statute-
not. Plainly, it is not your top concern because you have managed to lose 85,000 of them. And the Times knows where they are, or 2/3 of them, and they're with labor traffickers. It's unbelievable.
Ain't nothing changed, nothing new here to see. This ain't nothing but some political maneuvering. America. Welcome to the eulogy, eat it up. It's called political buffoonery.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to This Week in DUMBmocracy, where we showcase some of the dumbest newsmakers of the week. So while we're all basking in the afterglow of finally getting a speaker, and congratulations to Mike Johnson for finally getting enough votes to break that threshold and grasp the speaker's gavel, let's focus our attention on the Senate for a moment. And I want to take a look at a senator that I admire, but haven't really talked about it on the channel yet, and that's Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri. If you ever watch him in a committee hearing, he is absolutely terrifying. We've talked about Senator Kennedy from Louisiana and his folksy Socratic method of getting the information he wants or humiliating a dumb witness in the process. Hawley is sort of the other end of the spectrum. And that intensity was fully on display as Hawley was questioning this witness, Robin Dunn Marcos, the director of the Office of Refugee Resettlement at HHS. Hawley was questioning Dunn Marcos concerning the ongoing child migrant crisis at the southern border and the reported 85,000 children that the Biden administration has lost track of in the process of kind of running an assembly line of getting people away from the border and spreading them out. And Hawley's questioning, more like an interrogation, was the definition of precision. The man's intensity was on full display. We're going to get into the whole thing, but first, please subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any other shows. And if you like what you see or hear in this or any of our other videos here on the channel, be sure to smash that thumbs up button, like, comment, share the show with your friends, all that good stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, and everybody else, what you're about to witness here is a complete undressing, figuratively. I mean, we don't want that happening. It was a literal undressing of this director and the entire program that the Biden administration has implemented, which has resulted in the loss of tens of thousands of children and has resulted in exposing many of them to not only unfair child labor, but also adult trafficking within the country. This is a serious one, and the buffoonery is pretty irredeemable. So there are the HHS witnesses. Boy, it looks like a firing line, doesn't it? Let's listen to Hawley and his interrogation of Robin Dunn Marcos. What you're going to hear should shock you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Marcos, can I just start with you? You testified a moment ago to Senator Butler that every child gets a Know Your Rights presentation. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Is that before or after you release them to labor traffickers?
Hawley's coming in hot. You can see already he is setting the tone for what I've already called an interrogation.
Senator, every child that comes into our care gets a Know Your Rights presentation as well as...
Have you read these New York Times reports, these stories, the series of stories the New York Times has done on the children who are in your care? Have you read them?
Yes, I have.
Have you read that children are scrubbing dishes, they are operating heavy machinery, they are delivering meals, they are harvesting coffee, they are working construction, they are working as housekeepers, they are working overnight shifts at plants where they are not paid, they are not going to school, they are not cared for, they are not giving meals, almost all of it illegally. Are you aware of that? That's a yes or no.
Yes.
Do the Know Your Rights presentation help them in those situations?
What Senator Hawley is referencing is a series of articles from the New York Times exposing the Biden administration's mismanagement, shameful mismanagement of migrant children and how they are placed in foster families or with other guardians in the country once they're here, and then they're forgotten about. There's no follow-through. There's no nothing. I'm going to link some of the articles in the description of the video, But here's basically how it goes. A child comes into the country illegally, a migrant child across the southern border. They're identified, and then the government tries to find a sponsor for them, whether it be a relative or a foster family that is willing to take them in. There's no real background checks. There's a cursory background check. Law enforcement doesn't get involved, and if the person is here also as an immigrant, there's no foreign background check, no checking with the country of origin to see if that person maybe has a criminal record somewhere. It's pretty unfair to call it a background check. It's the very thinnest level of due diligence. And after about, 2 months or so, that's it. The government washes their hands of them. There's no follow-up. There's no checking to see if the child is going to school. None of that. The government has lost 85,000 migrant children in this program. It's completely disgusting. And this is one of Senator Hawley's main issues this term in the Senate. He has introduced the Corporate Responsibility for Child Labor Elimination Act, which is legislation compelling large corporations to eradicate this sort of unlawful child labor from their operations in the U.S. Hawley also sent a letter to the FBI demanding a full-scale effort to find and locate these 85,000 missing migrant children. And needless to say, those who escape child labor may not be escaping adult trafficking of a totally deviant sort as well. Make no mistake about it, this is a clear and present danger that the Biden administration and this director in HHS has virtually ignored beyond the 60-day period of identifying these children. It's basically out of sight, out of mind, and Senator Hawley is trying to battle this and change this process. Like what you see so far? Go ahead and smash that thumbs up button. Also, leave us a comment and tell us what you're thinking. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another show.
Senator O or R.
That's a yes or no, I think. Do you really think that you're helping these children by releasing them to labor traffickers and, yes, sex traffickers? 85,000 children whom you have no contact with, and your answer is we gave them a presentation before we turned them over to these people who are exploiting them on a scale not seen in this country for 100 years, a century. A century. It's a disgrace in the United States of America. Let me ask you this. You did an audit, I noticed, where you gave yourself a clean bill of health. So just tell me this. Do you require sponsors to document their relationship with the child?
Yes. Self-certification, the enemy of transparency in government. Hawley was referencing, I guess, an internal investigation done at ORR, saying that everything they're doing is just fine, apparently. I wasn't able to find that self-certification, but I'll take Senator Hawley at his word. He seems to be on top of this issue. He's drafted legislation to try to change things, so I think that his office would be on top of this. Could you imagine in your private life, in the private sector, doing your own audits and saying, I'm doing great? Do you think your boss would accept that? So why should we as citizens accept that from the government?
Senator, we have a thorough vetting process.
Do you
in
require
which-
sponsors to document their relationship with the child?
Yes, we go through.
No, you do not. You do not. Have you read the Senate's Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations reports on your office? There was one in 2016, there was one in 2018, there was one in 2020, there was one in 2022. Spanning administrations, what they found is you do not require sponsors to document their relationship with the child. You release them anyway. What about
That's crazy. How do you release a child, the most vulnerable in our society, in a foreign country, to just a stranger, and then just assume that everything's going to be okay and that there's a happy ending? It's completely irresponsible, and it should shock you.
background checks? Do you require background checks on all adults in the household?
In cases where the child is being released to their parents, we do not require background checks. But Senator, I would
Do you
really
require
like,
background checks on all adults in the household in any case?
Robin Dunn Marcos is completely evading every single question that Senator Hawley is asking. She wants to give her answer and her spin and not give a direct answer. These are the games that are played when you have opposite partisans in a committee hearing. There's evasiveness and avoidance of answering questions directly, and it makes it look like the agency, in this case HHS, is acting improperly with regards to these migrant children. Just answer the question directly. It's not that hard. Are they conducting background checks on every adult in the household? When you say, oh, when there's parents involved, we don't do that. Well, what about other people in the household? What about blended families that have more than just parents in the household? What about the other adults that may be in that household? Are you doing background checks on them? Let's see if we get an answer.
Yes, in some cases we do.
What percentage of cases do you do background checks on the adults in the household?
I don't have that number in front of me.
She doesn't know. You're coming before a Senate committee hearing. These are things that you should know if you know that you're coming to talk about migrant children. It's inexcusable. This is completely ridiculous. This is a sham. This woman is completely unprepared for this. I don't know if it was willful or negligence.
Do you do home visits in all cases? You can actually see where these children are being released, whose care you're putting them in?
We do not do home visits in all cases. Senator, I'd really like the opportunity to talk about what we are doing.
I know what you're doing, and it's incredibly and totally inadequate.
She wants to talk about all the good things. She wants to put her spin on what they actually are doing, according to her. But it's clear that Senator Hawley is having none of that. Robin Dunn Marcos is exhibiting many qualities of different buffoons that I talk about in my book, Schnooks, Crooks, Liars, and Scoundrels, a field guide to identifying political buffoons, available right now on Amazon, at Barnes & Noble, and other online bookstores. And by the way, it's an award-winning book that's available right now for 99 cents on Amazon. Go pick it up today. I guarantee you, you're really going to like it, especially if you want to identify buffoons for the coming election cycle. Robin Dunn Marcos is performing an agenda gymnastics routine. She's trying to twist and turn and contort what they're actually doing at HHS to avoid the trip-ups and obstacles and direct questions that Senator Hawley is posing to her. It's not working because clearly she's not good at it. Or I should say Senator Hawley is really good at putting a stop to that sort of gymnastics routine. And what you end up having is the impression that this woman and her department is not doing right by these children. Again, 85,000 missing. They could be exposed to child labor. They could be exposed to adult trafficking and many other horrors. And they're being exposed to all this because the government is just releasing them into the wild like a captured animal. It's disgraceful.
And we can read about it in the New York Times. Since you say you've read it, let's talk a little bit about that New York Times report if we could.
Hawley's got receipts.
Here's a quote from the April 17th installment. Again and again, veteran government staffers and outside contractors told HHS, including reports that reached the secretary, that children appeared to be at risk. Did you warn the secretary that children were at risk?
Senator, I'm in regular contact with the secretary.
Did you warn him that children were at risk?
Safety and well-being of children is our top priority.
Did you warn him that children were at risk?
I'm not going to get into the conversations I've had.
That's a disgusting non-answer. She's not going to go into what she says to the secretary, and child safety is their top priority. Obviously, it's not. If you do no follow-up for the benefit of the child.
You're here and you're under oath, and this is an oversight hearing. And we need to know what you're doing because you're manifestly not doing your job. Did you warn him that children were at risk? Do you believe that children are at risk? Let's start with that.
Yes.
Okay. Did you warn the secretary?
Senator, I'm not going to get into the specifics of my conversation, but I would like the opportunity
Why
to
wouldn't you
talk
warn the secretary that children were at
I
risk?
would like the opportunity to talk about what we
Let's
are
look at what the
doing.
secretary.
That's not how this works, Robin. You don't get to just talk about what you want to talk about. You're here for oversight. You're here to answer the questions of the senator. This isn't about what you want to talk about. This is about getting to the root of a major problem in the Biden administration. Why don't you want to get to the bottom of it?
Secretary said to you The other one, James.
Ah, come on, James. Oh, step up your game, man. Just kidding. You and Jerome from Sheila Jackson Lee's staff, you guys can talk later.
Yeah, that one. At least 5 HHS staff members said they were pushed out after raising concerns about child safety. Mr. Becerra, that's the secretary, told the ORR director, that's you, right, that if she could not increase the number of discharges, he would find someone who could.
Wow. So now we're talking scandal level stuff here, in my opinion. The secretary of HHS, Becerra, seems to be saying here, at least from this isolated quote, and again, you can check out the article listed down below if you want to, seems to be saying here that he wants to deal with the issue of quantity over quality when it comes to these children. Treat and street. Get them out of circulation with the government as soon as possible, and then just leave them to their own devices. What a disgusting way to treat human beings. This is supposed to be Democrats, right? Aren't they supposed to be concerned with the dignity of all peoples, especially children? Kind of eye-opening, don't you think?
And then he went on to say that if Henry Ford had run his plants like this, he would never have become famous and rich. This is not the way you do an assembly line. Get the kids out, run them through, get them out to those sponsors, those traffickers. Why didn't you resign when he said this? Do you think that this is morally acceptable?
Senator, I joined ORR in September of 2022. I believe that was reported prior to my arrival, but I cannot speak.
This is from
She's covering her own ass. She's more concerned about covering her own ass and keeping her job than the job that's being done. Typical bureaucracy mentality. I keep saying disgusting, deplorable, disgraceful. There aren't adjectives for this entire video and this woman, Robin Dunn Marcos.
article this year.
I can't speak to what the secretary.
Do you think that this is acceptable to run ORR like an assembly line and to release these children
I
to
can assure
traffickers?
you, we do not run ORR like an assembly line. The safety and well-being of children is our top concern, and by
Plainly
statute,
not. Plainly, it is not your top concern because you have managed to lose 85,000 of them. And the Times knows where they are, or 2/3 of them, and they're with labor traffickers. It's unbelievable. Let me just ask you this. How many kids right now, the 430,000 approximately, unaccompanied children have crossed the border under this administration? It's an astounding number. How many are you in regular contact with right now?
Well, we're waiting.
Senator, we have a number of different providers across the country who
But what's the
provide
number? What's the number? How many of you are you in? You said child welfare is your top concern. What's the number?
I don't have the specific numbers.
How can you not know? Why
Because-
would you come to this hearing and not know?
Respectfully, if you would like us to provide comprehensive case management to children after they're released from our care, so we can report.
Respectfully, I would like you to do your job and not release children to human traffickers. Respectfully, that's what I would like. I'd like you not facilitate the largest child trafficking ring in American history. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
He said it better than I could. You know, I could see a reasonable argument with HHS to say, we're not an investigatory body, we're not a law enforcement entity, and therefore we don't have the resources and the wherewithal to do follow-up work that you're asking about. But then the question should be, why isn't HHS coordinating with Homeland Security, with the FBI, to do just that? There should be allocations of money to be able to delegate these things and have interagency cooperation to do that. Even with local law enforcement, give local law enforcement a heads up that such and such children are located and placed in this household, and keep an eye on it, maybe check up in a certain amount of time. Use federal funds to fund that sort of operation by local law enforcement. There are so many different ways that this could be tackled. Senator Hawley is attacking it with his legislation, and he should definitely be commended for that. But man, oh man, the buffoonery here is just egregious. A word to the wise for people from different agencies attending further committee hearings, whether it's in the House or the Senate, do your freaking homework. Put in the work, get numbers together, get facts and figures together, have them at your fingertips. Prep, for God's sakes. This woman walked in and just put up a brick wall and thought that that would be good enough before the U.S. Senate. That's completely buffoonish and it's inexcusable behavior. But hey, that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments. Am I just going too far off the reservation with this one? Or am I righteous in my indignation towards the maltreatment of children by HHS and this particular department? Let me know what you think, and please share the show with your friends. Hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel. Hopefully, I've earned your subscription. And if I have, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any other shows. Let's keep on talking about all these instances of shenanigans and buffoonery that are happening every day this week in DUMBmocracy.
All views and opinions expressed here are not necessarily of the mainstream media and may offend some listeners. It's called political buffoonery.